Yeah, no, you're good. Greg, great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. And I want to begin our conversation with going on the 4-year anniversary of this pandemic. How did you get through that COVID time period and how did it change you?
So COVID was obviously really interesting and disruptive for everyone. For me professionally, it wasn't as much because our company already was remote. We've been working for remotely over a decade. And it was kind of like all of a sudden the way we've been working became legitimized. Because before that, sometimes you felt like embarrassed that you had a home office. You remember that CNN show where the mom's trying to like drag the kid out the door while he's on that.
I
So
love
that
it.
would be my life with kids breaking in there. And all of a sudden, everybody understood my life. That was I guess one positive out
Yeah.
of COVID. The other thing that happened is we've been working in this area. Our company's been around for 20 years. We've been working in this space that honestly nobody cared about. And it didn't really matter what we were doing. It was all about it was documentation, it's training and knowledge transfer. And then once COVID hit, all these businesses had to go remote and they found that their knowledge management, the way they were transferring knowledge to their employees, broke because it all relied on me sitting next to somebody else and watching what they did or tapping them on the shoulder on how I did it. So that really signaled kind of a real shift that continues still to this day for our business, that all of a sudden the stuff that we thought was important all along, businesses are now taking notice of, hey, this is a problem we need to fix.
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of grade schoolers, third graders. It's
Yep.
career day. And one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
So at a somebody's work, you're going to have somebody there that knows how to do everything. And you're going to have somebody who's new who doesn't know how to do anything. And what we do is we help that person who knows how to do everything transfer all that know-how to this new person that maybe doesn't know how to do everything. And we help them do it really fast in a way that's not really stressful.
So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
I think when I was in third grade, I didn't want to be in school. I think, I guess when I would be in third grade, I wanted to be an architect, but eventually I ended up studying music. So I graduated from the Berklee College of Music with a degree in film scoring. So my path has been a bit circuitous in arriving here and leading a tech startup.
Wow. Yeah, I only hear Berkeley in regards to jazz. I mean, maybe that's just because I'm pigeonholed, but I mean, that would make sense. There's a lot of jazz in all these soundtracks.
Well, so Berkeley is really diverse in the music that it teaches and supports there. So historically, it's been known very well for jazz, but in the film scoring department, you had to learn all the genres because you
Yeah.
have to have music that's going to match the film. So you do classical, contemporary, pop rock, jazz, Latin, all sorts of international styles. It was really a fun program.
So let me ask you this. Tell me where you were born and raised, and how did you become the bootstrapper, the guy that helps people automate and fix their lives in the business sense?
So grew up in a couple of different places, born in Salt Lake, spent some time in Connecticut, New Haven, Los Angeles, and then ended up in Salt Lake City for high school again. The way I ended up here, so I went to Berklee College of Music. I worked in the film music industry for several years after graduating, both in Boston and Los Angeles. But back in late 1999, my wife and I were visiting my parents for Christmas, and my first son was born while we were on vacation. So we're living in Boston, we're visiting them in Salt Lake. He's born 3.5 months early and has to go into the NICU there. He's under 2 pounds when he's born. Totally changed everything about our life and everything since then. We never went back to Boston. We had to stay there because he was in the hospital. And eventually, I was working in LA after he was out of the hospital and doing all right. Health insurance said, nobody's ever going to insure him as long as you're an independently employed musician. And so I had to kind of say, okay, I've got to shift careers here because I can't have my son and my wife actually not have health insurance. So my brother and I started this business together really primarily because if you had two employees, they couldn't deny you health insurance. They could charge you whatever they wanted, but they couldn't deny it to you. So we started that business and we got this opportunity to create some training for ultrasound systems for GE. And that started this company, and we dug into those problems of transferring knowledge that has led us here today and bootstrapping that business.
So, as a music fan, what was the first live concert you saw that blew you away?
The first concert I remember, but it didn't really blow me away, was Ice House. And the reason I was there was actually Men Without Hats were opening for them.
Okay.
But the first one that really blew me away, I was a huge Sting fan. So
Oh yeah.
seeing Sting, the Soul Cages tour,
Yeah.
um, the musicianship, the creativity was just, it still is. I still my favorite person to see in concert.
He's the best person to change his name. Gordon Sumter, I think was his name.
Yeah, yeah,
That
Gordon
was a
Sumner. Yep, yeah.
great idea. But it still blows me away because there were so many elements of the Police that were jazz infused that had like there was bands that are like that were like, but I still can't believe how good those guys were and how short of the time because everything they did was just golden.
It really was. They said I was listening to an interview with them recently. Sting was saying, or I think it was Andy Summers was saying, we don't have a lot of like extra tracks. You know, you'll go
Right.
back and you'll find these famous bands, you find the
Uh-huh.
ones that didn't make records. It's like pretty much if we made it, we put it on the record. We didn't have a lot of extra stuff. But you look at like if you're really a music lover, it was interesting when I started taking composition classes. So this is classical composition. They would use a lot of Police songs to show different
Uh-huh.
compositional techniques. Sting is just such a brilliant musical mind. So
Yeah.
it's always fun to just listen to his music and go, wow, how did he come up with that? You know, how did he
Yeah.
decide?
That's right. There was a guy, I think a guitar player named Beto, I think is his name. He just
Yeah.
interviewed one of the
Oh, I
dudes.
love his interviews. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
great.
yeah. He's a cool cat. Yeah. So, who's been a hero for you in your life? Who's been an inspiration for you?
A hero or inspiration. Clayton Christensen was really somebody. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. So he wrote the book. It's called The Innovator's Dilemma and The
Yeah.
Innovator's Solution. And it's basically a theory. He was a Harvard Business School professor, but then also consulted a lot of tech companies. I got to meet him, a little bit personally. And so both just from his brilliant mind, but such a humble person, the way he lived his life, the way he served in his church. I belong to the same church that he did. He's passed away now. He was always someone that I looked up to of having a clear purpose in life, having clear balance, and really making a difference in a lot of people's lives.
So, if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, someone that fascinates you, who would it be?
So I think that would have to be Russell M. Nelson. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints,
Yeah.
and he's the head of our church. He was actually a world-renowned heart surgeon and is now the leader of the church. Just a fascinating life, has been all over the world, has dealt with, was at the forefront of heart surgery there. But to me, just a remarkable man I would love to meet.
So, I grew up in a little town here in Kansas City called Liberty, Missouri, and there was
Yeah.
a down the street from me is where the jail is.
Yep. I've
Are
been
you familiar?
there. Yep.
Okay.
Oh
That
yeah. I've been.
I literally grew up within a half mile of there. So,
Oh yeah, that's if you're a member of our church, that location has so much significance
yeah.
because some of the most kind of meaningful scripture that we have for when you are really down, like when everything is going wrong, came out of that place.
Wow.
And so that's why that place is just very significant.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Um, so let me ask you this. What is the motivation for you every day? You're helping people, you're growing as a professional, you got a lot going on. What is that motivation to get you out of bed that helps you become who you are?
I love the challenge. I love having to be creative and finding solutions. So, we bootstrapped this business for 20 years. That means like nothing is ever easy. You're having to figure things out. You don't have all the resources you want. When I was in music, I love the creativity. I found that in this, being an entrepreneur, running a business like this, it's a different type of creativity, but you get to flex those creative muscles a lot, especially when you're building something. So I love that. I love having to tackle the problems. Now, obviously, there's some problems that give me headaches and I wish I didn't have to deal with, but it's almost like a puzzle you're trying to solve. And I love that. I love puzzles. I love the constant. There's always something new to figure out.
So do you ever miss the fact that you were going to have this other career as a musician, or do you just, like you said, incorporate it into what you do and kind of live both existences?
I actually don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
It's really surprising because if I tell kids like, okay, I was in recording sessions and got to sit in with some of the best orchestras in the world. playing film music. That sounds really exciting. I don't miss the music business at all. There's a whole kind of side of it. I miss the musicians. I miss all the toys and the great talent that I got to work with. But the business side of it, I don't really miss. I love what I do now. It's really exciting to me. It sounds really boring, like I'm talking about, writing down, training people. That doesn't sound nearly as exciting as film music. But for me, I really love it.
It's interesting because when I got into broadcasting, my whole dream was to be at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut. I wanted to be on the set with Keith Olbermann, Dan Patrick. I wanted to be up there.
Yeah.
And I love Bob Costas. We got to meet him at one point. I went to a broadcasting camp, and uh, Joe Buck was there and all these guys. And I got in on the inside of the business and I was like, I can't do it. I just can't. Like, even covering the clubhouse for the Royals was like the way the players were and the way that just the business was. I can't do it. Now I like sports. I had to take a detox in '94 with the strike. That was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
But I got back into it when I had kids. I mean, that right now is my incubator. I love seeing the joy in the kids. And what's better than having kids and having a world championship team? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
are you
You
kidding?
guys scored. Yep.
Yeah, it's like it's beautiful. But anyway, I see what you're saying. Like, I don't mind getting involved with sports and going out. And my son loves meeting them. I used to, and I don't know how that apple fell from the tree. I never pushed it, but he loves it and they
Yeah.
love him. But yeah, it's weird. I could not be on the inside of that industry. It was just too much.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how that works,
No, sometimes you find, as you go through life, you find out maybe the thing you wanted really bad. You get there and you're like, oh, maybe this isn't really what I want.
Yeah.
And I had a great guy that a mentor of mine who said, you've got your passion and you've got your purpose. And sometimes when you're young, you're all about your passion, which could be music, it could be sports, whatever it is. And then you figure out, okay, wait a minute, I've got my purpose, which may be, hey, I want to make a difference in the world. I want to provide for my family. I want to grow as a person. And I can find other outlets for my passion. So
Yeah.
I can still have that sports passion. I can still have that music passion. It doesn't have to be my career.
Yeah. I think for me, I just had to meet one nice person in broadcasting, and I met him kind of serendipitously. I got a raccoon at a thrift store that had a radio in it, the whole Radio Shack thing. And there was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little radio, and I turned it on, and there was a guy that had a show called The Neon Beat. Long story short, I was doing independent journalism at the time, and we interviewed, and he had a studio in his house. He was an engineer by day, and he got all the old radio equipment and converted his garage. So he was like, come over, bring a script. And I did jazz, and that was it. It was like the dream was back on. Kindling is as hot as ever. So,
That's
but
great. That's great.
it was fun, man. So let me ask you this. Of all of the clients that you've helped, all the professional successes that you've had, what has been one of your favorite success stories?
That was actually pretty easy. So we worked with this group down in Southern California, and they were, public utility type thing. And they described it, just their place was such a hard place to work. Everything was so complicated. People were short-tempered. They were lots of anxiety, not a happy place to be. And we took them through, they really did it. They did most of the work themselves. We gave them guidance. We have a framework that we take people through, and we have a software product that helps you build out this system for not just training employees, but enabling them to work independently. And they told me this story. They said it's been the greatest human experiment they've ever been part of, totally changed the culture there. But it is all summed up in this one story. So they have this call that would come in that was always super complex. And the person who's getting this call today always has to ask someone else to take it. They have to, someone who's been there for decades has to take it because she just can't do it herself. Well, she's been trained in our method. She's got the resources. They see the call come in. They see she's about to forward it on to the other person. They said, no, you got this. You can do this. So she brings up the digital guides that our system has. She handles the call, all the complexity, and she finishes it. And she does it on her own. And in that moment, they said she jumped up out of her chair, twirled around in her seat, and said, I did it. And so I love that picture of someone who has, because lots of at-bats, they haven't been able to hit the ball. And he's really lacking confidence. But this time, we were able to play a small part, and their team really played the biggest part, but setting her up so that she could be confident that she could do it on her own. And that changes everything. That doesn't change just the business. It's better for the customer, better for the business. It's better for everybody, who has to relate with those people, because they're just happier people.
It's the ripple effect for sure.
Yeah.
So of all of the things that you've done in your life, things that you've overcome and achieved and become, what are you the proudest of?
think I'm the proudest of being resilient. So had a lot of adversity. So like I said, my first son, born very early, he has a cerebral palsy and autism, um, and wonderful kid. He's 24 years old now and with us. But that it meant all kind of plans were out the window. And I've had many other experiences like that that just took life in a direction that I couldn't have anticipated. Um, but you don't kind of get through those things without being resilient and just saying, okay, well, here's the cards we've been dealt. Here's the situation. Let's work a solution and figure it out. So I guess that's what I'm proudest of is to keep getting up to bat and keep showing up.
I'm so glad you said that. My son that I mentioned that loves the athletes, he's on the spectrum. And
Okay.
he has this certain way that with them that just pulls him in. Like when Alex Smith played for us, which he was in Washington for a bit,
Yeah.
he loved him. I mean, they were taking pictures together and ham hocking. But when he gets around these athletes, it's like they're just immediately pulled in, and he loves it. Like we're gonna go to see a Bucks game in Oklahoma City over the spring break. He's got all of it mapped out. I want to meet Giannis. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I just keep the gates open. Cool, let's do it. I don't know how it's going to work. I've never been to an NBA game. We're NBA and NHL deficient in Kansas City, but you know what?
Yep.
We're going. So anyway, it's funny you mention that because I think about all of the things that I've done in my life because I'm taking care of my son, and that's the number one priority. And the
Yeah.
things, the way that you see the world because of the way that they see the world and the way that you have people perceive and just, I mean, because when you have a child with special needs, just it sends a tremor through everything in your life, family, for everything, and you just got to fight and do the right thing.
No, and it's interesting because you'll find that oftentimes they bring out the best in people.
Hmm.
Sometimes they bring out the worst,
Yeah.
but most of the time they bring out the best. And my son, huge music fan,
Yeah.
just loves music. Never loved kiddie music. Always loved like the Police and U2 and Coldplay and REM. All these groups. We were at the Coldplay concert and we're on the front row because the handicap section of the thing was
Oh
right there,
yeah.
the second row. And when you watch him at the concert, he kind of stand on his own, but not quite. But it's almost like an out of body experience. I mean, he's singing at the top of his lungs. He's jumping around, and they noticed him on stage. So they noticed him, and they kind of pointed to him while he was singing. Chris Martin, and they brought him out like an autographed picture and the
Wow.
set list. And then at the end of the night, the drummer, Will Champion, threw the drumsticks to him, and we've got him like in full accessory.
Wow.
But it's exactly what you said. Like they kind of bring out. They have just a unique light
They
about them,
do.
and you notice them, and it could go the other way, right, too, like it could be
Yeah.
really emotional or that, but and there's those times where you see just that kind of that spirit shining through that's really unique,
Wow.
and
That's
people
so
notice it.
cool. That's so, and I love Coldplay. So that just warms my heart because it is true. There is a way I think about. Did you ever seen the show Stranger Things?
I've seen like one episode, but I don't know it very well.
Well, there's an upside down world that's in it. And I keep thinking that because of the experiences that I've had, you get to see kind of the other side of how this world and our perceptions work. So it's fascinating. So I'm curious, everyone out there has a perception of you. You have all these different roles, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think like any entrepreneur, you have that imposter syndrome, right? That you think, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm
Yes.
supposed to be in charge of all this stuff. So I guess my perception of me, I hope the perception others have is I'm someone who has good intentions, that tries hard, that will own up to his mistakes, that but tries to do his best. So I guess, yeah, my perception is someone who will try to stick with it.
So let me ask you this. If you could go back in time in a time machine and see one event in human history with your own eyes, where are you going?
Oh, that's a tough one. One event in human history. I am a big World War II. Uh, I love World War II history. I think it's such a pivotal point in the world. We did a big project, never got to finish it on the history of D-Day. And so seeing that, it would be awful, it'd be gruesome, but to see it was a pivotal point. I mean, it was an inflection point in the history of the world. I think that would be something that would be I guess to be there in the meetings, where they were trying to figure out how to overcome that challenge would be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, if anyone out there wants to hire you, learn more about you, reach out, how do they do that?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Greg DeVore. If they want to check out our company, it's screensteps.com. And if they want to check out our book on how to transfer knowledge to your employees faster, that is findandfollowbook.com.
Excellent. Greg, this has been wonderful, man. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Take care.